With the conclusion of the Russian elections, many Russians are protesting their result. Thousands have taken to the streets in protest of the elections count that gives Vladimir Putin's United Russia Party just under half the vote. Unsanctioned protests have broken out in Moscow, St. Petersburg, Rostov-on-Don, and other places. These protests are larger than have ever been seen in the Putin years of government. On Wednesday, Russian police blocked off Triumphalnaya Square, a popular place where protests have been held in the past. According to the Other Russia Party, 70 of their members were arrested on their way to that particular protest. About 1,000 people have been arrested in Moscow during 3 days of protests alleging election fraud. There have been several incidents reported by the Communist Party of election misconduct. Communist leader Zhuganoyev has stated that the party monitors halted an attempt to stuff the ballot box at a Moscow polling station where they found that 300 votes were already in the box before the vote began. Olga Lazarev, a communist working as a poll station official, says she woke a few hours before the polls opened to find her apartment door had been glued shut. She says she suspects other election workers plan to stuff the ballots for United Russia. Russia's only independent elections monitoring group, Golos, which is funded by US and European money, has come under heavy pressure in the past week. On Friday, it was found guilty of election violations. The Golos website documenting suspected violations was hacked, and the group was fined the equivalent of $1,000 after prosecutors accused it of violating election law. Hackers brought down the website on Sunday, and its director Lila Shibanova and her deputy had their cell phone numbers, email, and social media hacked. Many have questioned the integrity of Golos as an organization, given that it is funded by Russia's political rivals. On Tuesday, U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton suggested that Russia's elections were neither democratic nor fair. She, along with Germany, made statements calling on Russia to make democratic improvements. She all but outright accused Vladimir Putin of personally rigging the vote. When authorities fail to prosecute those who attack people for exercising their rights or exposing abuses, they subvert justice and undermine the people's confidence in their governments. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, an 84-year-old woman who was protesting the abuses of power by the 1% was sent to the hospital after receiving critical injuries from police brutality. The elderly woman is in intensive care because she dared to question the legitimacy and the wisdom of the people running economic affairs of the country. The legitimate contesting of the ruling class's power has been a sore spot for the U.S. government for months now. The economic elite have already called for an end to this outburst of free speech. Prime Minister Vladimir Putin strongly criticized the U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Rodham Clinton on Thursday for encouraging and supporting Russians protesting election fraud, and warned of a wider crackdown on dissidents. He said that by encouraging the protests, she gave a signal to his political opponents that the U.S. will back their attempt to topple him. He's also called much of the protesters mercenaries who are doing the bidding of foreign interests, particularly the United States. Putin warned that the government might take an even harder line. We need to think about strengthening the law and holding more responsible those who carry out the task of a foreign government to influence our internal political process. In an unexpected turn of events, former Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev has chimed in on the current electoral situation, placing his support firmly behind the protesters. Publicly, he said Sunday's Russian parliamentary election was marred by fraud and has called for a rerun. Disregard for public opinion is discrediting the authorities and destabilizing the situation. While the Western media is hailing Gorbachev's statements in the current process, I personally think very little of them. I take what he says with a great deal of salt, not just a grain. This is the man who dismantled the Soviet Union against the wishes of the people. Those people protested for democracy, not capitalism. They were asking for a return to Soviet-style councils of people's power, not free market rhetoric. The end of the Soviet Union has brought nothing but declining birth rates, lower living standards, crumbling healthcare system, and decreased education. As it stands right now, there is a great deal of disinformation flowing through the media and the country. A wise move would be to remove all foreign interests from the nation and allow the Russian people to settle this matter themselves. No one can speak of democracy while a foreign imperialist power interferes with the political process. The Russian people need to be left to fight this one out for themselves and allow the will of the people to settle things. If you liked this video and you'd like to see another one, then click here to go over to the Maoist commentary channel and see a video on an apple bomb. She recently made a statement on the Occupy Wall Street situation, and she was also the author of one of the terrible books on the Soviet gulags.